Good day and welcome to Cooking Keto Southern Style with Randy. I'm in the kitchen this morning going to prepare a true Southern dish. Have a big bunch of turnip greens that we're gonna wash here in a minute. Some smoked ham hocks to go along with my Southern cornbread. So I've already cooked one pan. This is a 8-inch skillet's worth. After we get the turnip greens on, I'm going to show you how to make this cornbread. So we'll be back after we have the turnip greens, be over to the stove, and I'm going to show you how I prepare my greens. So we've washed our turnip greens, and we're going to go over here to the stove now. We're going to actually start out by preparing the skillet for the cornbread. So you can see here on the stovetop, I actually have the 8-inch skillet, and I have a small container of lard, and I'm going to put about 2 tablespoons. So as you can see in the skillet here, I've put about 2 tablespoons of lard. We're going to put this in the 450-degree oven and let that melt down, and actually let the cast iron skillet get really hot. And when we actually pour the cornbread batter into our skillet, we want it to actually sizzle and form a crust before we even start baking it. So now we're going to actually start working on our turnip greens. So I'm going to put the skillet in the oven, and we're going to move this pot forward, and I'm going to turn this on high heat, and I'm going to grab my ham hocks right here, and we're going to actually start off by cooking 2 of those. So let me get a pair of tongs here, and I'm going to actually use some avocado oil just in the bottom of the pot so we can render just a tad bit of additional fat out of the ham hocks. And if you're not familiar with ham hocks, they're actually back in the meat section, over close to where the ham and pork is located, and they just come pre-packaged from the store, and what they are is the shank end of a ham. So I'm going to use 2 in here, and we'll get those sizzling here in a minute. And then the other 2 I have left over, you can actually put these in a freezer Ziploc bag and freeze them, and that's what I'll do for the next time I want to cook turnip greens. I'll already have them. Okay, so now our avocado oil has gotten hot, and I actually have the ham hocks are sizzling, so I'm going to turn them over and actually reduce the heat just a little bit, or we're going to end up burning our oil, and I don't want to do that. So let those ham hocks render just a little bit more. And I'm going to get some water, so when we put in the turnip greens, we can start making some pot liquor. So we now have a nice hot pot here. Let me slide this back just a little bit. You can see my turnip greens, I actually washed them 3 times, and I have kind of ripped them up. So we're going to go ahead and just add the turnip greens in, and they're going to make a little noise. But we want to get them all into the pot. Just keep cramming them down. Although, I don't know if you've ever cooked turnip greens before. It looks like you have a lot, but by the time you end, it's not. So I'm going to add probably about a half a cup to a cup of water in here. I'm going to put in some pink Himalayan salt. We're going to kind of just turn that over with our tongs. And they'll actually, here in a minute, it'll start steaming and they'll wilt down and we'll be able to stir them up a little bit better. So I'm going to go ahead and put the lid on this. And we're going to let those simmer for a while. And now we're going to go over and actually make our cornbread. Okay, the turnip greens are over on the stove right now, simmering away. They'll take probably 2 to 3 hours. I like to cook them for quite a while. Once, you know, I had some of the fat rendered out of the ham hocks, we reduced the heat down, so it's just on a medium-low simmer there. So now I'm going to go over the recipe for the cornbread with you. This is for an 8-inch skillet. If you were going to do a 12-inch skillet, which is deeper, you double this recipe. So that would be for pretty much a standard size pound of cornbread. Since I'm doing 2, it's going to equal out about the same amount. And then later I'm going to use this cornbread in another dish that I'm doing. We're going to make chicken and dressing out of it. So I'll put a link to that episode down below in the description, the chicken and dressing recipe, as well as in that recipe I'll refer back how to make the cornbread, so you can see how to do this. Now I have tweaked this recipe. This is a combination of 3 different ones I found online, and I actually have added just a little bit more to it and have a special ingredient. Well, I'll put it down here on the GoPro. Y'all can hopefully can see this. This is 1-on-1 flavoring, and it is cornbread flavoring. I watch and subscribe to several YouTube keto channels myself. One of the guys is highfalutin low carb, and I'll put a link to his channel down there, and he does battles. And I watched a cornbread battle a couple weeks ago when our cousin Cindy, who lives in Northport, Alabama, asked me what I was going to do about chicken and dressing. So that's what brought up cornbread. And so I watched all 3 of him, and he had ordered a flavoring off of Amazon. And I debated on ordering that one because it was going to end up being right at $35 for 2 ounces. This one is 2 ounces, and it was only $9.99. And if you have Amazon Prime, it got free shipping on there. It took about a week to get here, but when I got the actual flavoring, the company who has this has a website, and they make hundreds of flavorings. So actually I was going through there and have found some other flavorings that I'm going to order. However, one that I wish they had would be buttermilk. I did not see a buttermilk one, because when we're going back to this cornbread recipe, I like buttermilk cornbread. I don't like sweet cornbread. Sweet cornbread to me is cake. You might as well just get some chocolate or vanilla frosting and put it on the top of it, because it's cake. Cornbread to me is a very savory dish, not a sweet dish. So if you like that stuff in a box, this is not going to taste like it. However, you can always add a little alternative sweetener to this if you like a sweeter cornbread. Now, I keep calling it cornbread, and it's really not even cornbread. It's actually almond flour bread. But we're going to tweak it just a little bit because, as you can see, and I'll show you down here in the overhead, the final product, it looks just like cornbread, and it tastes really close to buttermilk cornbread. I'm actually doing another tweak on the recipe to see if it even comes out better. So I will include that in this. So after all of that, we're going to go over what's in it. It's 1 cup of almond flour, and then, and I didn't bring it over, pink Himalayan salt, and I've got that now, and 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, 1 tablespoon of oat fiber. Oops, I didn't get that out of the microwave. So this is, ow, it's hot. 1/4 of a cup of melted butter, which is a 1/2 stick of butter, and it does need to be melted. The fat has separated down to the bottom. Let me swirl that around a little bit. 1 large egg, 2 tablespoons of heavy whipping cream, 1/4 of a cup of sour cream, and right here is a half a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. And I'm trying to use the sour cream and the vinegar to give it that tart flavor of the buttermilk. I do not like a dry cornbread, so that's the reason I said I've tweaked this to make it a little more moist. The palm that's over here, the first one I cooked, it was dry. So this one actually, that amount of liquid has made it a lot more moist. So in our bowl, we're going to put the oat bran. I mean, not the oat bran. It's not oat bran. That's a cereal. The oat fiber and the 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, and stir to combine. And I'm just using a whisk here. And then we're going to add about 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. I'm gonna do a little bit more because this to me needs a little more salt. So my original cornbread recipe that I make with self-rising cornmeal, my daughter one time asked me how to make it. She wanted measurements and I said I eyeballed it. So I always eyeballed when I was making cornbread batter, and so I guess that's the reason I do the salt like that. So now we're going to actually add the butter. And man, I got that hot. The 1 egg. The 2 tablespoons of heavy whipping cream. And I'm going to use my spatula and make sure I get all the cream out because it always sticks to these little bowls. And the 1/4 of a cup of sour cream. Plate back over here. And we're going to kind of bust the yolk on the egg and get the dry and the wet together here. And as you can see, it comes out almost like a waffle batter. And that's what I was always looking for. Actually, my original cornbread recipe was between a pancake mix and a waffle mix. So, and then we're going to add in the apple cider vinegar to hopefully give it just that little bit of tartness that buttermilk normally did. And if you didn't make buttermilk cornbread, then honestly, this is not going to bother you. But I just like the buttermilk cornbread. Then on the website, it recommends for every cup you make, you put 3 to 5 drops. Well, I was expecting to have a dropper. There is not a dropper. So in this recipe, I actually got out my little tiny teaspoons and found the one that's labeled drop right here. And I did 5 drops. I think it needed a little more flavoring. So this time I'm going to use the one that says tad, which is the biggest of these, and I'm just going to do 1 spoonful of tad in here. Oh, what the heck, we're going to do 2 tads. And I might make it too cornbready flavoring. Now this is supposed to be a little bit on the sweeter side is what their website said. I didn't really think that tasted that sweet. If this ends up not working, I am going to order the $35 bottle of extract that the highfalutin low carb chef used and give that a try. Yeah, it's now we're into September, and usually September through February we make cornbread quite a bit. So this would be one thing that I would really miss this year if we didn't have. Okay, so now I'm going to slide this out of the way, and we're going to reach in the stove and bring out that hot cast iron skillet, and I want y'all to watch how it sizzles. I don't know if you can see, but you see how that pan is, that oil, or actually that lard is just shimmering. So I'm going to set that right there on the granite countertop, and we're going to do this quick because the granite will suck it out. But this step right here is what gives it, and I always kind of pat it down even, gives it that dark brown crust. Now we're going to pop this in the oven for 20 minutes. And I'm going to set the timer. And we will be back when the cornbread is done and the turnip greens are done for a taste test. So we're back. The cornbread has gotten done. It's down here. I've already cut a slice and given it a taste test. Adding the apple cider vinegar and the extra flavoring of the cornbread flavoring from one-on-one flavorings actually got rid of, whatever you want to call, the flavor of the almond flour. I always think whenever I do anything with almond flour that it tastes like those little bitty almond cookies that you could get, you get a tray of 5,000 of them for $1. Mother always had them at the house and it was just a quick snack for us. So that's what usually almond flour products remind me of. This does not. It actually tastes like just cornbread that would not be a buttermilk cornbread. I was hoping to recreate that buttermilk flavor, but I don't think I'm going to be able to achieve it until I do some more tweaking and playing around. But this does taste really close to southern cornbread, unsweet southern cornbread. Like I said, if you like sweet, you can put in a little a sugar alternative to this and actually have you a sweet cornbread. So we're going to go ahead and do a taste test now. I'm going to cut me off a little piece of the cornbread, and as you can see, it's actually very moist and it is crumbling just a little bit, which is fine with me, but I like moist cornbread. I don't like it really dried out. And then the turnip greens over here need to go a little bit longer, but they're still edible at this moment. And as always, you got to have some pepper sauce on your turnip greens, so I'm going to add a little pepper sauce to them. And we're going to give the turnip greens and a piece of cornbread a taste, because that is always just so good. And I'm actually making like a turnip green sandwich here. A lot of times I will just soak the cornbread down in the pot liquor from the turnip greens. And if you don't know what pot liquor is, that's the juice when you cook turnip greens, mustard greens, collard greens, any kind of greens that's left over. And it's so good, especially dipping your cornbread down into it. So I've got my little cornbread, looks like a little appetizer from a country restaurant. Man, oh man. The cornbread is crunchy. The turnip greens are just nice and soft. We're going to let them cook just a while longer over here. I mean, they're down on low, just simmering. Get some more of that ham hock flavoring in there. So if you try these recipes, the cornbread or the turnip greens or both of them, let me know by giving me a thumbs up or a thumbs down right below the video here, and please leave your comments and what you thought about these recipes, any suggestions or ideas that you may have. Also, subscribe to my channel, and if you've already subscribed, make sure you hit that bell down there so you get immediate notifications of when my new videos are posted. And as always, I will accept any challenge you have for me to take a Southern classic recipe and convert it to keto. And from my kitchen to you, y'all have a wonderful and great day.